Dreadnoughtus. The name means fears nothing, and when you see the numbers, you'll understand why. This titanosaur from Argentina is famous for one specific reason before we even get to its size. It is the most complete giant sauropod ever found. 70% of the skeleton recovered and measurable, which means when scientists argue about this animal, they're arguing with evidence, not guesswork, and argue they do. The 2014 study calculated 65 tons using bone geometry. Later, 3D modeling pulled that number down to somewhere between 49 and 54 tons. Nobody has settled it. What's happening with Dreadnoughtus isn't confusion. It's a scientific tug of war between methods, and the animal keeps winning by being too complete to dismiss and too massive to agree on. Its upper arm bone alone stood taller than a full-grown man. And here's the part that breaks the brain entirely. When they found it, the growth plates weren't fused. It wasn't finished yet. Now, before we go further, a quick note. If you've watched this channel before, you know Argentinosaurus already. We covered it. What this video is doing is something different, pulling back the curtain on the giants that rarely get named, the ones that rewrite what we thought we knew about how large biology is actually willing to go. These animals aren't the runner-up. They're the evidence that the story is bigger than one fossil. Argentina wasn't done. Futalognkosaurus, say it slowly. Futalognkosaurus, giant chief of the lizards in the Mapuche language. It earned that. Measuring between 26 and 34 meters, depending on which reconstruction you trust. What separates this animal from the fragmentary crowd is completeness of a different kind. The skeleton recovered gave scientists a genuine proportional picture of a truly enormous sauropod, not extrapolated from 3 bones, not reconstructed from a cousin species. A real animal, preserved well enough to argue about seriously. The neck alone accounted for nearly a third of its total length. An animal so long that its front end could be eating while its back end was still somewhere else entirely. And while Futalognkosaurus gave us length, Puertosaurus gave us width. Puertosaurus. Same region, same era, entirely different problem. This titanosaur wasn't just long, it was wide. Its vertebrae measured nearly 1.7 meters across, some of the broadest ever recorded in any land animal. Picture a single spine bone wider than most door frames. Weight estimates push towards 70 tons or beyond, though the fossil record here is brutally incomplete. Only 4 vertebrae recovered, 4 bones. And from 4 bones, what emerged was something so laterally massive, it would have looked almost architectural, standing still. Less like an animal, more like a living building that occasionally decided to move. Then one sauropod decided the ground wasn't the point. Sauroposeidon, named after the god of earthquakes. Not because it caused them, though at full weight it probably registered somewhere. Because of the neck, a leading contender for the tallest animal ever to walk the earth, rivaled only by specimens like Barosaurus that keep the argument alive. This North American giant stood approximately 17 meters at the top of its reach. 6 stories. Put a head on a 6-story building and you're close. The neck was so extended that nerve signal travel time from brain to tail meant the animal had physiologically already moved on before the message arrived. Sauroposeidon likely fed at canopy heights nothing else could access, converting biological extremity into competitive monopoly. Nobody else could reach where it ate. That's not a flaw in the design. That's the entire point of the design. North America had its own version of this arms race. Alamosaurus, the last of the great North American sauropods. Late Cretaceous, which means this animal was alive while T-Rex walked the same continent. Scientists originally underestimated it. Early specimens read as large but unremarkable. Then bigger bones surfaced, much bigger. Revised estimates now place Alamosaurus potentially over 70 tons, completely rewriting what North American dinosaur ecosystems looked like in their final chapter. For decades, paleontology assumed the true heavyweights were a South American exclusive. Alamosaurus had been quietly disagreeing from inside a Texas rock formation, waiting for someone to find the rest of it. But not every giant needed a long neck to make the list. Shantungosaurus, the largest duck-billed dinosaur ever found. A hadrosaur from what is now China, reaching 16 meters in length and an estimated 16 tons, heavier than most carnivorous dinosaurs ever named. No dramatic neck, no crushing predatory arsenal. But don't mistake that for biological simplicity. Inside that flat skull sat one of the most sophisticated chewing systems in dinosaur history. Hundreds of tightly packed teeth forming a biological wood chipper capable of processing enormous volumes of coarse vegetation continuously. Hadrosaurs didn't dominate through weaponization. They dominated through processing power and sheer scale. Shantungosaurus responded to being prey by becoming so massive that hunting it crossed from opportunity into miscalculation. Sometimes the answer isn't claws. Sometimes the answer is just becoming inconveniently large to kill, while also being able to eat everything in sight faster than anything else alive. Then the asteroid landed and mammals inherited the weight problem. Palaeoloxodon antiquus, the European straight-tusked elephant. And here's the correction history owes this animal. It isn't just a large elephant. Current evidence positions it as the frontrunner for the heaviest land mammal ever recorded, edging out even the giants discussed in this video, and frequently surpassing Parasauritherium in revised estimates. Standing up to 4.2 meters at the shoulder and weighing somewhere between 11 and 15 tons in robust specimens, it was significantly larger than any living elephant, larger than the woolly mammoth, larger than the animal most people picture when they hear Ice Age giant. It lived across Europe and Asia during warmer interglacial periods, moving through forests that no longer exist in climates that no longer exist. Its tusks curved forward and outward in proportions that looked almost architectural, and yet popular culture never gave it a name. No franchise, no documentary hero moment. Just bones in European museums that visitors walk past without realizing they are standing in front of the heaviest land mammal that likely ever lived. The Ice Age had another giant most people confuse with something smaller. Mammoths trogontheri, the steppe mammoth. Not the woolly mammoth, not the Columbian mammoth, the one that came before both and was larger than either. Living across Eurasian grasslands between 1.8 million and 200,000 years ago, standing up to 4.7 meters at the shoulder, it is potentially the largest proboscidean ever recorded. Tusks on some specimens exceeded 5 meters, curving outward in arcs that look structurally implausible for an animal that still needed to function. The woolly mammoth is famous because ice preserved it. The steppe mammoth is forgotten because the Eurasian steppe didn't. All that remains are fragments, but the fragments are staggering, and now the math lands. Line every animal in this video up, and the pattern isn't coincidence. Size was always a solution to predation, to competition, to resource access, to nothing in particular except biology's fundamental logic. If the resources exist to grow, something will grow until they don't. Dreadnoughtus grew until its bones said stop, except they didn't say stop. Sauroposeidon grew upward because the canopy was uncontested. Shantungosaurus grew wide because alternatives were worse. Palaeoloxodon grew quietly in a Europe that forgot to remember it. The steppe mammoth grew into something so extreme that evolution dialed it back, producing smaller descendants that survived longer by being less. The biggest animals in history didn't fail because they were too large. They failed because the world stopped affording them. Climate shifted, vegetation collapsed, the asteroid landed, the humans arrived. Size was never the flaw. Size was always the precise answer to the exact question being asked at that moment. When the question changed, the giants had no smaller answer ready. That isn't excess. That's commitment at the highest biological level. And the animals that committed hardest are the ones whose bones were still measuring, still arguing over, still revising upward when the next fragment proves we underestimated them again. Which one do you think we've still got wrong? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe if you want the next one. The answer will probably be bigger than you expect.